Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Well, today's a big day. So it's just barely daylight outside. You can see through the windows, and it's cold. It's a Saturday morning. I'm ready to get to work on this thing. Today's a big day in that today the pistons and rods are going to be put into our block. We are ready. We're getting close to having a short block done here. So that's today's project. We're going to see what we can do about that. Hopefully this will all go smoothly. I think I'm pretty prepared. I think we've got everything we need. Just to recap, crankshaft is all in and done. But what we have to do now is to insert each of these piston and rod assemblies, and then we have to go through the plastic gauge process like we did with the main bearings to make sure we have the proper bearing clearance on them. And we got to cross our fingers and hope that all goes well. I don't have any reason to suspect it won't, based on the way the mains were, but you never know. So anyway, so that's what we'll be doing one at a time. We'll put those in. We'll put the plastic gauge on there. We'll torque it down, and we'll pull it back off, check the clearance. If everything's good, we'll just lube it up and put it right back on and move on to the next cylinder. So I'll get everything all set up and ready to go, and I'll be right back with you. All right, we're all set up here on the bench. I'm going to quickly go over just prepping one rod and piston, and then I'll do the rest of them off camera. But pretty simple. So as you can see, we've got the new pistons. They came with the rings installed and everything. The only thing I have to be careful about, I obviously had to switch them over to the rods. No big deal. The fit was excellent. Everything is really good. I'm really happy with all of that. The only thing we have to watch for, obviously, we've got to wipe everything down and then lube it up with engine oil before I slip it into the cylinder. But you have to orient them right. I don't know if you can see, but on the top of the piston there's an arrow that goes towards the front of the motor, and that orients them correctly. The other thing you have to be careful of is make sure that the rings are spaced out. You've got 3 rings. Okay, you got the oil ring, second compression ring, and first compression ring, and those have to be staggered 120 degrees apart, just to make sure that no combustion gases can, if you had them lined up, combustion gases could escape down those two and get to the oil ring. This oil ring's job is to scrape the cylinder wall down and get the oil back down into the crankcase. So if perchance all 3 of them were, that would be disastrous. So you just stagger them about 120 degrees apart. Once they're in there, I don't believe that rings ever rotate on the cylinder or on the piston. Not absolutely certain of that, but I don't think so. I've never heard of it anyway, and because that would obviously cause all sorts of problems if indeed it did happen. So you just make sure that those things are pretty close to 120 degrees apart, those gaps, those ring end gaps. The other thing that'll have to happen is we've got to put the rod bearings in the half a shell in here. I do have this, go back just a minute, I went ahead and bought a ring compressor. And what this does is just simply, you expand it out and it clamps around the piston. It's just a big band clamp, basically. And it expands. You let it out like so. You get it out to the size that you need anyway, and then you crank it tight. You slip it over the piston and you crank it up tight, and it compresses those things. And it's got, I don't know if you can tell, but it's got these little nibs that stick out, and so then you set the piston down into the hole, and you'll see all this. And then I just take a hammer handle such as this, and just tap that piston down in, those little nibs catch on the in this case the sleeve, and stop this from going in, and then the rod and piston assembly just slide down in. The other thing that I do is I take some gas line hose, and I don't really have exactly the right size, but this will work, and I slip it over the rod bolts, just so when you're driving it in, you don't bang one of these into the crankshaft journal and mar it up. So I might have to even slice these a little bit to get them to slide on there well enough, but it's just a temporary thing. Then when it's all set down in there and it contacts the crankshaft, then you reach in and pull those off, and then you have your rod bearing cap that then sits down on there. So what we do is simply clean everything up and make sure it's nice and clean. Take your rod bearing shell, slip it in there just like so, boom, and that's all there is to it. The rod cap has there's no oiling holes to align, nothing to worry about, and the upper and lower appear to be exactly the same, so it doesn't really matter. But the rod does have an oil hole, and so you've got to be careful about that. And I made sure those were all nice and clean, so we don't have any restrictions. And you simply push that in there like so, and snap it down in. The rod, I don't know if you can see that, but the oil hole is aligned, and then these go on, and we're good to go. But first we got to get those rings compressed. So let me get this all set up, and I'll come back and show you. Okay, so let's start by compressing some rings here. So I just have a little bit of oil here, and just engine oil, and a little acid brush. I'm just going to brush a little oil on, and just to kind of lube things up, making sure everything's staying nice and clean, and that we don't move those rings around much. And just wanted to have a little lubrication, or as the manual says, drive away oil. That's what the shop manual says. I love those old terms. Okay, simple as that. Now, making sure that the ring compressor is in the proper orientation. Simply set the piston down in like that. Well, it's a little awkward, I guess. Turn around, put the crank in here, and start cranking it up. Hopefully. Maybe not. Okay, what's going on here? Okay, it's just a little stiff, I guess. Get some of the slack out of it. See if that's enough. Okay, check those rings one more time. One there, one there. And this one could be a little bit further over. There. I'm getting myself all jacked up here. All right, I gotta have something to orient to. Go with that. That. And that. Okay. I'll set this down into that compressor. Hopefully it's wide enough yet. Okay, all down in. Now let's see about getting this cranked up here. And you just simply tighten this band up, and that just compresses those rings back into their grooves. You want to get it, you don't want it too tight so you can't slide it out of there, but you need those rings all the way in. Okay, So simple as that. And now we'll get our, let's put our bearing in. Okay. And a little assembly lube on the bearing. Because this bearing, this half won't be coming back out unless we've got some sort of a problem, which I'm not anticipating. So we'll lube this one up. The top half we will not, because we've got to use a plastic gauge on it. So I think I'm going to need to slice these open. I think that's... They may actually make a product called a bearing buddy, which is just a kind of a rubber sock that slips over those, but I didn't bother with any of those. This works just fine typically. Okay, slide that on there so it'll hold, but yet won't mar anything up. It's just got to guide it past the crankshaft without damaging it. And it also holds the rod bolts up, because I got one here that seems to have a tendency to be a little loose. Okay, I don't know, maybe I don't know if I can just move the engine over here and go with this camera setup. Yeah, it looks like I can. Okay. So what I like to do is turn the crankshaft, you can't really see, but so that the rod journal is at its lowest point. It gives me the most clearance going down in. I also will put a little bit of lube in the cylinder. I just wiped them all down with a good lint-free cleaning. Well, actually, it's a shop paper towel, those blue ones, and they don't seem to leave any lint behind, so just lube that cylinder up a little bit. And all things appear to be ready. So once again, orienting the piston so that the arrow on the top of it faces the front of the motor. We're just going to start with number 1 here. And then I usually just take a hammer and just start tapping down in. It's easy so far because we haven't encountered the rings, but pretty quick here we're going to be into the rings, so we already are, I think, and it's still just going perfect. You got to make sure it doesn't twist much or anything. Boom, and that's it. That piston is in the hole. Now we need to I kind of need to turn this over, but I think we're okay here. We'll drive it down just a little bit. I think we'll go ahead and just do this one and then do the others rapidly, but we'll start with this one. So let's turn the block over. I might have to reposition it. I don't know. Okay, so here we are upside down. You can see down in here, let me add a little light. You can see that rod down there. It's got a little twist to it, no big deal. It's easy to turn in the cylinder. And so now we're just going to get it, I'll kind of hold it lined up so it guides up onto the journal okay. And then we'll tap on the bottom and push that piston up into the block until the rod bearing contacts the bottom side of this journal. And then we'll put the rod cap on with our plastic gauge and see what we get from there. So I'm going to put you back on the stand to watch this. Okay, holding that over a little bit. I'll just take the hammer and just gently tap that thing up. And here's where my little pieces of gas line hose are protecting the crankshaft. Keep driving it up in there. It's got a little twist to it. Straighten it out a little bit. Keep driving, keep driving, keep driving. And there it's coming up nicely. Almost home. Actually, I think, okay, I feel solid. Now let's pull these off. It shouldn't really be able to go anywhere, although those rod bolts could drop out of there. Let's just make sure that we're up solid, and we are. Okay, so that's all there is to that. Now let's go ahead and put some plastic gauge on there, and let's check this one real quick. Okay. A little piece of plastic gauge across that journal, just like so. Okay. Put the bearing on dry, the bearing cap on dry. Making sure you orient it correctly. I stamped these rods, so just make sure the numbers go on the same side. This is where those rod bolts can be a pain sometimes because they'll kind of try to drop out of there. Yeah, I got one that's stuck right now. There it goes. Okay, put the rod nuts on. Okay, there's one. There goes the other. Okay. And we've got to get our the torque wrench and 9/16 socket here. Sorry, this is the one thing I forgot to lay out. Okay, so proper torque is, I think it says 45 to 55 foot-pounds. So we'll run it up to about 30 to begin with. Okay, that's 40. Okay, there's 30. I don't have a fancy electronic torque wrench, so we'll just pull them up to start with here. Okay. Okay, here we go up to 30. Okay. I hope you can see this okay. Okay, there's 30. Now we'll go ahead and run it up to, said 45 to 55. We'll put them at 50. I think that's what it was, right? Yeah, 45 to 55. Okay, here we go. This is going to be 50 pounds. Okay. Now, we'll take it apart. Try to tap that cap back off there and see what kind of clearance we got. I think it calls for 1 to 3.5 thousandths. So we'll see what we get here. Keep your fingers crossed. Sometimes these things can be a bugger. They hang up on the rod bolts a little bit. Sometimes you got to kind of finesse them out a little bit. Doggone it. There we go. Okay. Whew. Okay, so our plastic gauge smudged a little bit, but I think we're okay anyway. I don't know if you can see that. That's not the best plastic gauge job I've done, but we'll see what we get. So then you just line it up here. Remember, our clearance is 1 to 3.5, and we're at we're pretty close to 3. Now I wish that was tighter. I don't know if I can get a better reading off the part that's on the journal or not. No. Oh, you know what? Actually, it's wider. It's tighter than that. It is. Yeah, it's right about 2 thousandths. So I'm good with that. I am absolutely good with that. So I'm not screwing around here. We're going to go ahead and just clean that plastic gauge off the journal and off the rod bearing surface, and lube it up and put it back on. Be right back. Okay, little assembly lube on this rod cap. Just gonna lube it up a little bit. Don't have to get carried away. Just gotta have something in there when we cold start. Okay, and find my stamping. There it is. Okay, slide that back down on there. Make sure everything lines up. Try to keep those stupid rod bolts from falling out. There. Get one started just so it can't fall. There we go. All right, we'll run those up just snug here. Okay. Pull them up to torque. So let's start. Once again, we're going to do it in stages. We'll take it to 35 initially here. There's 30. 35. Okay. Lock that down. Pull them up to there to start. Tug them up to start with here. Okay. It's 35. Now we'll unlock and we'll go to 50. And there is 50. Click. Click. There is one rod and piston assembly installed. A couple of things to look for. Got to make sure you have side clearance. Now I know you can't tell, but that rod moves back and forth on that journal, and it needs to. This is the rod that I had to replace, so that was a little leery. Let me see if I can quickly find the clearance. Let's see if I can find it here real quick. side clearance, 5 thousandths to 11 thousandths. This might be a little tighter than that, but it's okay, I think. So here's a 5 thousandths gauge, and see if that'll slip in there. Just barely. So I think we're okay. Yeah, it actually does push in there. So we got 5 thousandths. So it's a little on the tight side, but everything's new. It's okay. So we're not going to worry about it. So that's about the last thing to worry about. So we got good bearing clearance. What'd I say, about 2 thousandths, maybe 3 thousandths, somewhere 2 to 2.5 anyway. We got good side clearance. We're oriented correctly. Yeah, I think we're golden. So from here on out, I don't think I'm going to film each one of these. I'm just going to get them in there and come back to you, because it's same thing over and over. So rinse, dry, repeat. So I'm going to come back to you. We should have an assembled short block here, and then we'll be moving at that point. Then we'll be moving on to let's see, front timing components, probably. I'm having a little concern about that too, and I'll get back to you at that point on that. So, all right, and there we go. This is the bottom end, obviously. All 4 rods are up. They all have good side clearance. Can't really, it's so small. It's only 5 thousandths, but it's good. They're all good. Everything plastic gauged out right at 2 thousandths clearance. And remember, the range, the tolerance is 1 to 3.5. So we're right in the middle. Everything's looking really, really good there. Hang on, I'll flip it over here. Let's see if I can do this and hold the phone. So you're getting a little heavy in my little Harbor Freight engine stand. I don't know how much more it's going to take. I think I'm going to have to beef it up before I set the head on here. So there we go. Look at that. Woo, that's pretty. I love it. Everything's looking good. All our arrows are oriented correctly towards the front of the motor. Everything's looking really, really good. I'm really happy. So now we're going to move on to, we got to get that cam gear on. One of the other things I've got to address is the oil pump, the oil pickup. Okay, so the oil pump's installed, but the pickup screws right in here. And I actually should have put that pickup tube in before I put this on, because now I've got a clearance issue, because this pipe has to go in here like this, and boom, it hits. But I think all I've got to do is take that main bearing cap off and then rotate the crankshaft down, and I'll have clearance. So not a big deal there. But one of the things I want to address, when I originally tore this down, it was looking pretty gunky and stuff. So I pulled it all apart, kind of pried the seams up a little bit, and took this off, cleaned everything off, cleaned the screen out, cleaned everything up. But one thing I noticed is, I don't know, it's been dropped or something, because there's no way that that's supposed to be like that. So I think I'm going to go ahead and pry this seam up. And I think when I do that, I think this will, well, I don't know what's going to happen here. Maybe not. That's soldered in there, and it's soldered in there. Maybe. Okay. I'm leaving it alone. Much as I hate to, I'm going to leave that alone. I am just afraid of that joint. I think it might just be a slip fit, but boy, it's really tight, so I doubt it. I bet it's soldered from the backside or something, and I just don't want to break that apart. I don't think it'll make any difference. It doesn't serve any purpose. No oil goes beyond this, because this is like this, lays down the bottom of the pan, sucks the oil up. This pivots just very slightly. It's got a little bit of range of motion on it. So I don't know that that's causing any issue. It doesn't look like it is, so I think we're just going to leave it. I don't. All right, so I just got to bite the bullet and pull this oil pump back off, much as I hate to, but I've got to. So we'll just get it off now and get it over with. Just hope those gear clearances come out right again. I'm sure they probably will. Okay, so now just screw this in. I don't know exactly where it's supposed to orient, so I better take a look at that. Let's slip this on. That goes on like that. This pin drops in to hold it. Okay. So that's obviously not correct. Let's see. Yes, it would be. So somewhere right in there is where it should be. Probably something like that, I would guess. It's got to be pretty parallel to the block. The bottom of the pan is flat, so it's got to be somewhere right in there. Let's see. I think that's pretty close. I'm gonna lock it down right there. It's got a little lock nut right here, so you can fine tune it. So I'll just kind of lock it down right there for now. I better tighten that before I forget. In case I don't have to do anything more with it. Okay. All right, that's that for now anyway. Let's pull this back out. And now let's retorque this and put that other main bearing cap back on. Man, I'm gonna be pissed at myself if that gear clearance changes. It shouldn't, but all right, so we're already set at 50. We'll just pull these up to that. Ouch. was doing 90. I was going to 95, I think it was. Okay, and our gear clearance is still good. All right, that is taken care of. Now we're going to switch over to putting that pickup screen and everything back together so we can hang that on here. So let's see, let's just turn you around right here. Come down a little closer. Tune in. Let's get this torque wrench out of the way. All right, so as I said, the problem is I just hate the way this is all caved in. I really wish that that was pulled up, but it is. I don't know if you can see that. Well, you can see it. It's definitely soldered in or brazed in or something right there. And I'm assuming where it comes through here, it is as well. And I just really don't want to break those apart. And I guess I could pry part of this loose, and maybe I could bend that outer shell down enough to kind of pull it back up, but I also don't know that it's going to make any difference because the tube goes through, so there shouldn't be any oil or anything contained inside of this. So maybe it's just, I just don't think it's worth bothering with. So I think I'm just going to put it together the way it is. So what I have to do is get this screen tucked back in here. I hope you can see all of this. And try to get that tucked back in all the way around. Sorry. Okay. Get all these little wires poked back in there, tucked in good. Okay, that all looks pretty good. And then this goes in where? Oh, I guess this just clips over the top. So now what I need to do is to crimp those back down. Just push that down so it all goes in there fine. Then this evidently just clips down over it. Yeah, so I think what I'd like to do is get a pair of pliers here and just try to kind of squeeze that down a little bit. Take a pair of channel locks maybe and just kind of squeeze that back down on there. You know, that might be how that got caved in. Maybe somebody did this before and that's how that got caved. I can feel it kind of collapsing if you're not careful with the pliers. Another pair of pliers and try to just, yeah, that's not gonna work either. You can see this. Okay, now, have any witness marks that show me how this went on? Oh boy. Somehow I gotta get those pushed up over that lip. Oh boy. There we go. That's 3. This last one. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Well, and as near as I can tell, that's okay. I don't know. Screen's a little bit off center, but about that. I think that's about all I can do with it. Okay, let's look back over here now. That goes on just like that. Yeah, I guess that's all there is to that. This little cotter pin holds that pickup in, like so. that's all there is to that, evidently. Okay, guess that's that. Yeah, there's no, I can't adjust it for any more depth. Let me go grab the oil pan. Okay, so the oil pan sits on there like so. Yeah, just like that. So that oil pan is, straight edge across here, somewhat anyway. Get a rough look at things here. So the oil pan is about 4 inches deep, give or take. So let's see where this is. So the leading edge of that pickup, lay a rule or something across there. So that's about 3 1/4. So it's about 3/4 of an inch off the bottom of the oil pan. But it's not actually, so let's see. I don't know if you can see this or not, probably not. But if I actually measure across like this, then yeah, it's only 3 1/2. So that pickup tube just darn near lays right on the bottom of the pan. There's no adjustment or anything, so I guess that's fine. I mean, that's where you want it. You want it to be able to pick up oil at all costs.